Hello everyone. In this presentation, we're going to talk about academic success, right? How to study for science courses. Not trying to scare you here, but this is a brief background here. So this is in 2014. So this is 6-year outcomes by institution. So right now we need to focus on 2-year public. Green is not good. Green is bad. The failure rate, folks, the dropout rate for 2-year public schools out of 983,433 students is 42.9%. What does that mean? That's almost a 50% dropout rate. All right. So, not trying to scare you. Now, the interesting thing here, folks, is most students do not drop out due to grades. And this is another statistical analysis that they have performed in Australia. And why do students fail in college? Now, Australia is definitely different than the United States. The first one, folks, lack of ability or lack of, in this case, or lack of academic ability or like all of that stuff is number 10. The big reasons why students fail in college is understanding the amount of work required. And other activities means you work, you take care of other people, you're a mother, you're a father, you're a parent, all right? You don't really know what you want to do with your life. That's number 3. And 3 and 4 is actually related. Now, obviously, if you don't know what you want to do with your life, you're going to pick a really, really terrible major. And also poor language skills. Language skills focus not learning how to read and write, but again, not learning how to understand what you're reading in this case, okay? So please understand that if you put the amount of work required and you cut down on your other activities and you devote a lot more time for school, you're going to succeed, no problem. Okay? So here we go. Here's another thing here, folks. Let's just look here. So people who work 40 or more hours per week, okay? Let's just look at this one now. A lot of their GPAs, folks, fall all over the place, but they are, as you can see, 2 of them are in the 0 to 2 GPA range. Now look at this, folks. Majority of the people who work 15 hours or less per week, 12 of them are in the 3.75 to 4.0 GPA. So this is again related to the previous slide that says time. Time is a very important factor for your success. So obviously, a lot of us don't have a lot of time to study, all right? So you need to put the time, you need to put the effort, but the most important thing, folks, is you need to have a good strategy. You cannot just keep doing the same thing that you've done with your history classes, with your English classes, with science courses, okay? So, and if it hurts, it's okay, all right? So struggle is learning. If your head starts to hurt, hopefully it's not an aneurysm. Again, just be assured that you're actually learning something. Okay? So, test questions. This is actually a very, very important thing. Now, a lot of your teachers probably have never talked about this thing called Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is a way for instructors to actually create questions. Okay? Exam questions, quiz questions, essay questions, whatever questions that would be. The hardest part of Bloom's taxonomy is up on top, and the easiest portions are down the bottom. I am going to assure you right now that 80% of your assessment questions are going to be in the understand and remember categories. But 20% is going to be on the higher levels of analyze and apply. So you should be able to pass the course with just the, I'm not saying minimum, okay, but in this case, the bare minimum of understanding, okay? But if you want to get an A in this course, you better bring your A game, okay? Now, I'm going to give you in this case, an example passage. So this is a passage for Bloom's taxonomy, okay? The atom consists of 3 particles, neutron, no charge, okay? 1 AMU, 1 mass, proton, positive charge, okay, with 1 atomic mass unit, and electrons are negatively charged particles with basically 0 atomic mass unit. Okay, so that's the sample passage for Bloom's taxonomy. Now, me as an instructor can write 3 different questions using Bloom's taxonomy based on this slide. Okay? So, an example of the remember, which is the lowest level of Bloom's taxonomy, is what's the charge of an electron? Well, if you read the previous passage, the previous slide, the charge of an electron is negative. Okay? What is the mass of a proton? Well, if you read the previous slide, you remember, again, remember is the lowest level, you remember that the mass of a proton is 1 AMU. Okay? Now, a little bit higher is understanding. So the question is, why is the mass of an atom only considers protons and neutrons? Now, protons have 1 AMU, neutrons have 1 AMU, and electrons have 0 AMU. Okay? So since electrons have 0 AMU, we do not consider them in the mass of an atom. So that is an understand question. Okay? So as you guys can see, it takes a lot more neurons, a lot more brain cells to understand questions in the understand level of Bloom's taxonomy. Now, in the application level, which is generally speaking in math courses and especially speaking in science courses, the highest level, okay, so this is an application question. What is the charge of an atom that contains 12 protons and 10 electrons? In order for you to answer this question, you need to remember the charge of an electron and the charge of a proton. If you do not remember those facts, you cannot apply. You also need to understand that the charge is based upon positive charges. The overall charge is based on positive charges and negative charges. So if you don't understand that, you cannot apply. Okay? So just to answer this question, the charge of an atom that contains 12 protons and 10 electrons is positive 2, because there's 12 pluses and 10 minuses. There's more pluses. That's why it's positive 2. So don't be shocked when you see a question that in the exam or in the quizzes or in the homework that makes you have to do a lot more work. Okay, this is not a history class where I'm going to ask you, when did Columbus land in the Americas? Okay, I'm going to ask you, that's an analogy, obviously. I'm not going to ask you anything about Columbus, but, you know, understanding dates, remembering dates, remember who came, those are remember questions. But understanding why and how, those are higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. This is one of my favorite slides. So the best way for you to study for all levels of Bloom's taxonomy is the 6 steps. Now, we're not going to be doing interleaving because I am hoping that you're only taking one science course, one course this summer. If you're taking more than one course this summer, I'm going to pray for you. Okay? But a very, very important thing is dual coding. You don't just use words. Okay? Draw pictures and use words at the same time. Because if you write and see something at the same time, you remember much better. The other thing is concrete examples. If you see an example in real life that might relate to a phenomenon in chemistry or anatomy and physiology, you'll understand better. The other thing is elaboration. Elaboration is if you have a child always asks why. Well, make one of your friends ask you why. You keep explaining a concept, and when the point where they cannot ask a why question anymore, you have truly mastered that topic. Okay? The other thing, folks, is retrieval practice. Retrieval practice is just basically self-quizzing. All right? One of the ways that you can quiz yourself actually is you need to use a very specialized form of notes. And one of the things that you can do is you can have, in this case, definitions on the right side. Okay? And in this case, the actual words that actually matches with definition on the left side, and then you can actually cover one side or the other and then try to remember the other side. Okay? If you want to learn more about the 6 techniques, the actual next 6 slides will actually provide you with more definitions. Obviously, you can always email me or call me or whatever you want to do. You can actually virtual chat me and we can talk more about these techniques. Now this is a concept. This is a concept called concept mapping, and when you take science or anything complicated, this is how you should do notes. You cannot just write words. You should be able to connect ideas together, and you should be able to, in this case, put two things that are like similarities and differences, okay, how they're related, okay, and how they contribute to a bigger picture. And when you take notes again, you need to make sure that you understand all of these little connections between different ideas and what is unique for each idea, okay? And I'm going to give you an example of concept mapping based on the subatomic particles, which was slide 9 in the next slide. So here we go. Example of a concept map related to the atom. Okay, so we know for a fact, okay, so I'm going to use this now, that electrons has this data on them. Okay, -1 charge, 0 AMU, neutrons 1 AMU, 0 charge, protons 1 AMU, +1 charge. Well, what's the relationship between neutrons and protons? Well, the relationship between those two is they make up the atomic mass. Okay, this is terrible. I'm sorry, folks. I'm again using a cursor here. What's the relationship between protons and electrons? Well, folks, protons and electrons make up the charge. So this is a concept map. They show you the connection between two different things. All right. What's another relationship between protons and neutrons? If you were paying attention before, protons and neutrons are also in the nucleus. So that's another relationship between those two subatomic particles. Okay? And electrons by themselves, okay, so just by themselves, okay, so if you want to do this, draw an arrow, they are outside, so they're in this thing called the electron cloud or in the orbitals. Okay? I really hate this cursor thing, but we're going to deal with it. All right? So they are in electron orbitals. So folks, this is a very, very simple example in this case of concept mapping. As you can see, I made connections by drawing arrow or drawing lines between them. Okay, now you can make it as convoluted or as simple as possible, but the more connections you make, the better you're off. Okay. The last thing is, again, is mindset. Okay, so a lot of students, they always say, oh, I'm terrible in math, I'm terrible in science, I'm good in English, I'm good in history. That's called a fixed mindset. In order for anyone to grow, you always need to understand that in order for you to learn something, you need to put the time and effort, and you need to understand that everything in life is about time. If you have time, if you're willing to put the effort, you will learn something, and at that point, then you will grow. Okay? This is also, FYI folks, this is also very helpful for relationships. So let's say, for instance, you broke up with your significant other. Well, if you have a fixed mindset that you're only, oh my God, this is the person of my dreams, well, you know what, forget it, right? But if you think that it's a growth process, okay, this was just a growth, small bump in the road, I'm going to grow as a person, I'm going to find someone better, that's called growth mindset. All right? So remember, time, folks, put a lot of time, okay, into your studying, and put the proper strategy in your studying. And if you do those two things, I have no doubt that you will succeed in your academic careers. Now, obviously, I'm not going to leave you out there hanging. Please, please, please email me, call me, right? Visit my virtual office hours if you happen to have any questions at any point, all right? And I'm more than willing to give you guys a lot of help, all right? So that is it. I wish you luck this semester, and I hope you apply just this very quick tidbits of information for your academic success.